That's a very, very important question. So I think that there are many components in the recipe. So of course, first of all, the researchers. So the quality of the researchers, the quality of the interaction between a team of researchers. Now, science is something that you don't do on your corner. It's an enterprise of many researchers in a lab, within a department, within a university, often with colleagues that are working abroad. So of course, the quality of the researchers, the broad view of where you want to go, and the quality of the interactions in the team, the human interaction for me is a very, very important issue. Open communication, really looking to build together in a project, not a competition, really trying to build something together to pursue a goal. So the interaction within a team, the interaction with collaborations, framework where you do the research. So institutions as La Sapienza, for example, where you have a very nice environment, it's a great place to do science. In my case, for example, I work at Institut Pasteur in Paris, and it's also a great place to do science. There is a lot of different possibilities of interactions with people from many different backgrounds. So I'm in the microbiology department. I have also a background in cell biology, so I interact very often with my colleagues from the cell biology department. We have interaction with the people doing biophysics, chemistry, the mathematicians performing models, people from the immunology department. So it's great to be able to develop your own research in collaboration with complementary teams from a multidisciplinary environment. This is part of what might be a recipe to try to do the nice research. I think that the very basic is the question that you are asking, a relevant question for your field that can improve, that can move things forward. So science moves a lot in movement of paradigm. So we have a paradigm, and then we build a certain amount of information. We build our research, and then maybe we have new technologies. Maybe we have new information that comes that are kind of pushing the paradigm towards its own limits. And this is where we change our way of seeing science, where we move forward. So I think that really the most important part is, what is the basic question that you are asking, where you are moving forward. And then, of course, all these elements that we discuss are part of this path that you are building towards reaching this goal, which is in the end, contributing to the big building of science. I have been working in several bacterial pathogens. So I have been working with the microbiology of pathogens and the interaction with bacterial pathogens with host cells. And so the immunology, the interactions between the interface between pathogens and the cells. And I have to say that something that I really like is a project in which we have our hypothesis. We build our hypothesis based on the knowledge that we had. And actually, we start to gather results, and all the results were telling us that our hypothesis was wrong. And I'm speaking specifically for characterization of a molecule from a bacteria that I also work a lot, that is called Listeria monocytogenes. And I was interested in the cell biology of the interaction between the bacteria and the cell. And we were studying a molecule that was described to be an hemolysin, so molecule that could break cells. We were trying, and this molecule was specific of the most pathogenic Listeria. And we were trying to understand how these bacteria were so pathogenic and how this molecule contributed to the pathogenesis. And then we start to work with the interaction with cells, and we were not seeing any phenotype. I mean, we didn't discover the molecule. So this was something that we were trying to construct on results from other labs. Nothing was working. And for months we said, but what's going on? Our experiment, nothing is working. And then we realized that this molecule maybe belonged to a family of antibiotics. And then we said, okay, maybe this molecule is doing something completely different. Maybe it's the interaction between bacteria and other bacteria. And then when we accepted that we have to change hypothesis and that we have to look in other direction, then everything started to fit. And to make a very long story short, in the end, we found out that this molecule was mainly an antibiotic secreted by Listeria, and that this antibiotic modulates the microbiota. And this is why not all the Listeria secrete this molecule, and only the population that secrete this molecule is able to, let's say, to make a space in the microbiota. And then after that, the bacteria can traverse the intestinal barrier and make a very, very critical infection. So I really like this story because, it was the results that were telling us, like, this is not the way. You have to think about, your hypothesis and look in a different direction. And so it was the result itself that told us, that we have to move somewhere else. So I really like this discovery because it was completely a new direction that we didn't envision at the beginning. But you have to be open, hear your results, hear what your results are telling you, not to push your hypothesis, that you have to confirm your hypothesis because you thought about it and then it has to be right. You have to admit that you can be wrong, and that you can, and this can lead to new, exciting, new directions. So I don't know, for me, it's a very important result, but because it teaches me a lot. And again, accept that you can be wrong and hear your results and follow the results, what your experiments are telling you. Of course, I mean, reading not only the most recent paper, but don't be afraid to go back in the literature and to revise our papers. For example, just to give you an example, we are now working with the Yersinia pestis, which is another pathogen. And the dogma nowadays says that this bacteria is a very clonal species that has evolved very little. And that we expect, therefore, that this bacteria everywhere in the world should do something very similar, which is a very fatal disease. And now we are going back to some papers from 1950s where people are describing some epidemics in Central Africa. And then they said, like we have the impression that here there is something different. And now we are doing genomics, and actually we are getting to this idea that we have to test still. But we are finding some differences in some African strains that were completely unexpected. But if we go back to the literature back then, we realize that people have already observed that. So of course, there are too many articles to read, so it's very difficult to be aware of everything that is going now and everything that went in the past. But if you have the chance, reading is very important. Then from a practical point of view, I will say that like a musician, for example, if you play music and you know how to play jazz, rock, funk, classical music, if you have a big repertoire, then for you it's going to be much easier to be confronted to different type of groups, different situations in which you will have to put out the best of you. So I think that in many fields it's the same. If you know different techniques, if you know different repertoires of techniques, then you will be able to tackle questions from different points of view. You may have different strategies. So try to diversify your experimental repertoire. I think that, again, it's easy to say, it's more hard to do. But if you can, try to get involved in different experiments. And of course, as I was mentioning before, we are now working sometimes in a very multidisciplinary dimension where you have experts in every field, but try to get involved in these different aspects of the project to try to have the more broad view of what you are doing. And I think that this could be a good also recipe to try to tackle your scientific question from a very, very big and powerful point of view. This is a very hard question because indeed we are in a world where we are now pushed to publish, we are evaluated, and even if science is evaluated from different points of view. For example, I have been president of the evaluation committee of the Pasteur evaluating all the scientific personnel. And science should be evaluated in theory from a different perspective, so publications, but also mentoring. How do you mentor your students? How do you work? You are able to work in this network? The divulgation of science, diffusion of science. There are different dimensions of science, but of course, most of the time, when decisions have to be taken, very unfortunately, the publication is like the tip of the iceberg, where all the vision is concentrated, and then you judge on that. So again, this is what we say when we have our commissions in Pasteur. Easy to say. Pasteur ascribed to the DORA agreement in San Francisco in 2012, when it was said that publications should be taken for their value and not for their impact factor. So you don't have to necessarily look to publish in the most visible journal all the time. Normally, in theory, your research, if it's good enough, it should go beyond. And I have participated to several courses, EMBO and FEPS courses in different parts of Europe, where we have discussed papers from Journal of Bacteriology, Infection and Immunity, and this paper, they have been really milestones in their fields. And you can consider maybe that this journal, they don't have a huge impact factor, but the papers itself, in the end, they appear as very important cornerstones in the field. For me, this will be the main message, that your research, the quality of research will speak about itself in the end. Of course, some journals are more visible than others, but in the end, what should count, and this I'm speaking to the evaluators too, because it's easy to speak to the people who are doing the science and tell them, no, you have to try to, don't worry about that. But I'm also speaking to the evaluators, and this is something that we have to do now, that we are going to discuss with colleagues in September in La Sapienza. Actually, we are not evaluators. We are there to discuss and to think about ways forward. This is what our role, to try to boost discussions and to try to think about the ways to move forward to the future. So I will maybe some people will think that it's a naive point of view, but I think that this is where we should converge. Evaluators and the researchers try to think about the real contributions of the papers and not only their impact factor. I think that from the beginning, science have made very, very huge contributions to science, and all fields of science. Here I'm also speaking about social sciences, of course. So I think that all sciences, they have made through history very, very important contributions, and nowadays we are still contributing. But sometimes we are kind of in our own bubble, in our silver tower somewhere, completely disconnected from society. And actually, society, we are contributing to society, and society is contributing to us, because society is financing our work. So I think that this is very important, that we communicate to the society, to the big public, to let them know what we are doing, the new directions, to educate people. And this is also very important, something that we observe now during the COVID pandemic. There were many odd ideas that were circulating, and if the society is not well educated, and educated by who? By us, the researcher. We are the one who have this duty. So if we don't teach and we don't educate society, then we are faced with this type of reactions where people will be against, our own contributions, and very odd ideas will be able to survive. So I think that this is, there are many reasons why we have to be active in communicating our work. And I have to say that it's always a big pleasure. And this is another aspect that is great to speak with people. It's great to tell other people from very different points of view what we are doing, because sometimes we are challenged and they ask questions, why are you doing this? Or why are you doing this way? And again, sometimes we are in our bubble, we are thinking in what we believe is the best way, of course. And it's good to have like this shaking, like this earthquake of your basis, and say, okay, yeah, I mean, I have been doing this way, but this is not perceived this way. Can we change our point of view? So again, can we change our point of view? And I think that discussing with people, discussing with the big public, is also a way of allow ourselves to be challenged and to tune if required. But it's important to educate, to communicate. And again, I think that is just from a personal point of view, for me, it's a very big pleasure to communicate, to discuss with people, and to allow this two-way partnership.